Okay, students, today we will talk about the design process. So our topic today, we will focus to understand more about the design process and then also related to the economics. Okay, why is this important today? Now, maybe you heard the word design process before, but as I said, we will talk a little bit about some of the details today. So when we say, first of all, a process, in general, doesn't matter design or any other, a process, okay? How can we define that? A process, when we say something goes in a process, it means a sequence of planned activities. They have to be planned, okay? You don't have a process if you don't plan the activities. That go through what? Several stages. Several stages, and each stage will, so you can have several stages, but each stage may have inside of it several tasks that you need to complete, okay? Now, when we talk about designs, any design, every design go through a process, okay? So when you start a project, you have to go through a process. And the main stages of any project, first, we have planning, then we have some kind of a development. So the development could include some research, conceptual sketching, then refinement of these ideas, and then step by step going into implementation and production. Okay? So every design goes through these stages in general. We talk. These are the major stages. So we start with planning certain things, solving a problem, for example, then moving on to the next stage, sketching, drawing, and so on, until we reach the final stage, which is the making of the design. Making, why do we make it? In the end, to reach the user, okay? The human, the user of this product. Now, I will go through each one of these and explain. So, every design project goes through a process, we said that already, that takes it from the start to the finished point. So we have a start point and a finish point. So, as a whole, we can say that a design process is a way of you figuring out what you need to do and then doing it, okay? So what do I need to do? What do I need to solve? What is the need of this design, okay, project? And then actually you go on to solving it. Please, whoever. So, when we say design process, there is no really like a right way or a wrong way to go. Like, there is several types of design processes, and it depends on, we will talk about it, the different types of projects, the different needs, if you are part of a company that deals with these kind of projects. So there is not really a right or a wrong way how to do something. But it must be a constructed process based on planning, okay? So you can use a constructed, planned design process to basically to improve your creativity, to be more productive and more accurate. If you start a project without any plan, usually you can get, a lot of confusion can happen. Maybe the time will not be enough to finish it. Maybe you will miss some important steps or stages. Maybe there's a lot of things that can go wrong. So every project needs to be planned. And whether you're a student or a designer working alone or part of a company in the future, this thing will always be present. So, it is a tool in a way, we can say. It's not a rigid list. When we say rigid list, like, that's it. This process, everybody has to follow it in a rigid way, like a rule. No. Things can change, but it is a tool that help you to do better work in general when it is well planned. Important to know about the design process, it's not linear. That that means, again, it doesn't mean if I put a design process on paper, the first step, the second step, the third step, everybody has to follow exactly this. This is linear, going from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. Non-linear, it can be non-linear. That means sometimes you need to jump from one to the, like leave out some phases and jump to the next phase. It really depends on the project, it depends on the need of the project. Okay, so not always it is linear, or someone can give you a list and these are the steps to follow and everybody follows the same steps always. No, it doesn't work that way. So, for example, sometimes even if it's linear, okay, you go from step A to step B to step C, and then, for example, let's say you're designing a product and you made the sketches, and then you make mock-ups. What are mock-ups? Simple models, just to understand. For example, I want to design this cup. It's a new shape. Before it goes to the real production, first we have a drawing of it. Then this drawing I need to visualize more. I make it out of foam or some other material, just to be able to touch it and see if it's a good size, and so on. Now, what if during the mock-up stage, I see, okay, there is a problem with the design. When I did the drawings, we didn't discover this problem, but there is a problem. So in this case, you need to jump back to a previous step and repeat it. So this linear way of going through a project, it doesn't always go smooth. Sometimes you need to go back, improve things, fix some problems, go back. So this is time consuming, okay? You always need to relate it to, when we talk about these things, to money, to the cost, that's if you work in a company, okay? So anytime you make a mistake with a project and you need to go back, that's extra time, meaning extra money, okay? So, but what you need to know in general, that every design project, even though it doesn't follow the same order, or it could be different types of design projects, it always starts with planning, okay? Planning the entire project, planning when you will do what and how. Everything needs to be planned. So, here is an example of the major, steps that a design project can go through from the start to the finish. So here, for example, sometimes it can start with a market research, sometimes with talking with the client, sometimes basically what the company is looking for. So it can be different things, but it starts with some kind of understanding what we need to do, so that it helps us to plan further. And then we need to also define. Defining means creating a project brief. A brief is like just putting all the thoughts together in a simplified way, so that anybody reading this brief understands where the project is going, what is the scope, what is the time available, what these kind of basic things. And then you move on to the next phase, which could be conceptualization, drawings, ideas, this kind of stuff. Then development, then here the prototypes or mock-ups, okay, depends on what kind of a project. You build simple models of the idea to, even if you're this doesn't apply only to products. Even if you're a graphic designer, and let's say you're designing a brochure, before this brochure on your computer goes to actual printing the brochure, it is always good to have a prototype or mock-up stage. That means to print this brochure, black and white, on simple paper, cheap paper, and just to see. Just to see, did I put the fonts in the right position? Does it have mistakes? Does it, the final look of it as a size? If the brochure needs to be folded, you fold it out of this cheap paper, just to see, is it okay or not okay? Because once it goes to the, to the real production, when they put it into the printing machines, and they put the colors and the details and everything, it will be very expensive to go back here, okay? So, if you discover the mistake here, it's very expensive to go back to fix it. But if you discover the mistake here, it's very easy to jump back to the previous step, fix the mistake, and then go to the real production. Any design should be going through at least these major stages of testing it, of looking for mistakes before, careful looking for mistakes before it goes to the actual production or manufacture. Every designed idea. Because even a small mistake can make a disaster here. Okay? So this is a general design process. Now after this stage, what happens? Okay, we designed everything, we planned, we designed, we manufactured it, okay? Then what happens? The distribution and selling stage starts. So, whatever you've done here now has to be distributed. That means someone has to come, take this, whatever you designed, and send it to the user. Sometimes the user himself come to the company to take his goods. And sometimes you need to, the company needs to distribute or to sell. It really depends what you're dealing with. But in the end, everything reaches a user, and this must always be remembered. Now, there are different, as you know, different fields of speciality in design. Like you could be fashion designer, or interior, or product, or graphic, or interior. So a lot of types. Now, each area can have a little bit different design process. That's what I meant before, that we cannot have one strict design process for everyone, you know. This major design process can be tweaked and changed to fit different needs, for different fields, for different needs of different projects. So, if I'm designing real products, now the materials that I will be using in this or in this, very different than what a graphic designer will use to print business cards, brochures, letterheads, and so on, okay, posters. So this is one difference. And the time and the entire process, okay, is a little bit different. So, for example, if I'm producing real products, we need to have someone who really is an expert in engineering, because if you produce something that should be functional, maybe the designers cannot really figure it out, some part of it, or not design it properly. So there must be an engineering expert who also will advise. That's beside the other experts that should be available, you know. But this is an example. Now for the graphic design, you don't need here engineering, okay, experts. So this is what I mean. Each area has its own things that will affect the choice of design process. Now also, so the type of industry affects what kind of process we will select, okay, that most suit. The type of project, we also explained that different projects have different processes. You cannot apply the same process to every type of project. Now, the size of the company and company policy. Sometimes, you know, we already explained before that there are different company sizes, like we have small company sizes, large ones, and when we explained about the hierarchy, and the company policy, the rules inside, it can be very different from one company to another. So sometimes the company itself like chooses or selects the process that you have to use. It's like maybe in the university you use a certain process, then when you go to work in a certain company you find they're kind of doing things in a different way than what I'm used to. And that's okay. That's how it is in real life. If you go to another company, you'll find also other things happening. So there is some things that you cannot learn in the university. You learn the general things, but you need really to go out and work to really understand the working, you know, environment, how it is. And as I said, different companies have different rules and policies, and it depends on the size, you know, also, and on many things, other things. Also, the responsibility of the designer in the company, like, so, as a designer, when you work in a company, you may be involved in, you as an individual designer may be involved in different stages of the process. So again, it depends on the company, you know. Like, for example, you may be involved in the stage where you create the ideas, where you solve the problem, or you may be involved only in the stage where you sit in front of a computer, someone else brings you the ideas, and you just take and put them in the computer. Like, it depends, of course, what you're designing again, but someone brings you the drawings, you look at them, and you try to draw them on a computer program, AutoCAD, Photoshop, Illustrator, it depends on the project, but this is your job only, for example, to do this work. Someone else might be doing the idea, or you might be involved in many of the process stages, depending on your skills, depending again on the company policy, on sometimes even how many employees are in the company. So if you're like only 1 or 2 designers in the company and you have 100 projects to do, then it's kind of, you'll be involved in so many stages, okay, of all the projects. But if you work in a company where they have 100 designers working on a project, it will be totally different what you will be involved in, okay? So, also something to consider, that some companies, as a company, deal only with the design part of the project, and then when they reach the production, manufacture stage, they take the project to another company. Like, not all companies deal from A to Z, like from the design stage till the production, because some companies don't have the money to buy the machines. It's like some machines are really expensive and need loads of money. So some companies do just the design part, then the design goes to another company that deals only with the production. They have all the machinery and they produce it. So this is normal, and you should also consider it. So I already explained like your tasks in the company and which ones of the design process you will be involved with. This depends really on the company you're working with. So sometimes you could be a designer who just implements what orders. So it's like all the creativity that you learn to be creative in the university, all to solve problems, all of these things suddenly disappear because you work in a company that only happens what the boss tells you. It's like, you have to do this, do it. You have better ideas, you have I don't know what, nobody cares, okay? So there are companies where you just implement orders. Someone gives you an order, you do it, without nobody caring about your creative aspect. But other companies, yes, your creativity matters a lot, okay? So what I mean is you need to know the huge difference from one company to another. I mean, this could help you in the future to select where you want to work. So do the research before you accept a job, okay? For example, in Jordan, I've seen some, graphic design companies. So I saw designers sitting in front of a computer and basically designing business cards, this kind of stuff, simple things, like these cards for the wedding, wedding cards. And exactly. But the thing is, they're not really designing anything. It's a pre-designed template. It's like, this is the size, this is the design. The only thing you can change is basically a new client comes, you put their name instead of the previous client name. Maybe change a little bit the colors, some line here and there. Something very simple, So it's not really design work, this. So you have a template, and you follow this template hundreds of times. It's like production, of the same thing, just with a little bit of difference. So in Jordan, they call this type of work tijari, So you're a graphic designer, but like tijari, you know. So you're not really designing or creating or thinking while doing it. And the boss come to you every 5 minutes on top of the head and shout, you know, did you finish this? Okay, we have another project, a third project, a fourth project, you know, and he keep shouting behind you. And I've seen this happen, you know. Anyway, so again, it depends on all of this aspect: where the company located, how the people mentalities are, how what size it is, what. So many things can influence you as a future as a designer, for example, because it can make you hate the design field or love it, depending on what kind of work you do, or change your complete aspect, and then you ask yourself, why did we study that subject and that subject in university when I don't see any application? Well, it's not that there isn't, there is, but it's where you work is the problem, okay? It's like where you work. That is the big issue. So we have a big design process in general, but which part of it will you work? Which part of it will your future be focused on, or parts? So this is something important to always think about. Now, there is also a type of designer called a freelance designer. Okay? We need to discuss that, because until now we talk about always the designer, part of a company, working in an environment where there is a lot of other employees and a boss. Okay, what if you are a freelance designer? Then you're basically, you could be sitting at home and doing your design projects. So you are the only person responsible for everything. You take projects from clients, and you might think, okay, it's a great way. I'm sitting at home and doing the project. You choose your time, you choose everything. Great, but it also can have some issues here. Like, if you are the only one responsible for a certain project, that means you're doing everything alone. Like even the cost planning, you have to plan. Okay, this client come to me, for example, and ask me how much it costs to design this brochure, or make for me. And then you have to ask him, okay, what are the specifications? A lot of questions, to ask. How many colors? When do you need it completed? In 1 day, or 1 month, or 1 year? How many you need? A lot of questions that you need to ask. And you need to decide on the price, what to give them. So everything is on you. Even the costing, even the time planning, so anything that can go wrong during this process, you are the only one. Nobody else to help you. Nobody else to blame. Like, it's not my fault, it's that one's fault. Okay? No, it's your fault all the way. Okay? If you deal with the difficult clients, you're the one who has to deal with them in a proper way. And if this is your only way to make a living, like this is the only way how you receive money, then you must try to increase your client base, and you must be able to know how to deal with the clients so that they will come returning to you. Because believe it or not, there are a lot of freelance designers. A lot. Okay? So you are in competition with others. Now, you're not a company in competition with another company, but freelance designer is in a way like a company, but that competes with other freelance designers. So who is the better one? Who is the one that finishes the work and in better quality, making the client happy? Okay? So you also will need so your skills in project management. We will talk about this later, okay, in our course. So you need to manage the whole project alone, totally. And imagine if freelance designers don't work on one project at a time. They can work on many projects at a time. So then it becomes really complicated, the process, and organizing your time. You must become expert. So this is wonderful in a way, and at the same time, it's much more difficult than working in a company. In a company, you're limited. For example, you only do this, you only do this 2 or 3 tasks. Aren't you responsible for that only? Okay, yes?
But doctor, I think يعني when we graduate يعني not from the first year we can get freelance, right? We should work in companies then.
Now look, you asked me about something personal, like opinion. I would advise you, instead of jumping to freelance straight away, to first work in a company. Because the experience you will get from the company is something you didn't learn in the university. So this experience to actually work somewhere, you will learn a lot of other things. Then later, if you want to become a freelance designer, you already have extra skills not to fail. Because once you fail as a freelance designer, that's it for you. It's like your name is tainted, you know? It's like Malak, you know? Tainted her name if you fail in a project. It's like, but in a company, whose name will be tainted? If you fail, for example, nobody will know about you. They will know about the company. So you're safe in a way, you know? So you can learn inside the company before you go alone and face the world, you know? So this is my opinion. Now, we already discussed this thing. Now, if you work in a smaller company, usually you must keep in mind that you will be involved in a lot of tasks in the design process, which also complicates your life, you know. But if you're talented, if you're skilled in many areas, this can make you more happy because you see, it's the change. Not every day to do the same thing. You will get crazy in the end, you know. Some people will get crazy, some are happy. But some people like to change. Like today I'm involved in the generation of ideas, solving a problem. Tomorrow I'm involved in computer work. Then, you know, it's not every day the same thing, routine. So it depends on you, on the personality. But the smaller the company, it could have only one designer or 2. And they do everything. So a lot of tasks. So is that something you can handle or not, you know? So in Jordan, I mean, because we live here, most of the companies, design companies that I see are smaller companies. It's like there are bigger companies, but not really that big corporations that you can see outside of Jordan, like with 100 designers, and you know everybody works in a specific thing, and there's collaboration. And this thing more rarely seen here. So it's like more likely that you'll be involved in a medium or small size company with a lot of jobs to do. Now this idea here, we already kind of discussed it before, that companies in general, now whatever the design process is, whatever the company deals with, in general, companies don't like a lot of like fresh or new or inventive ideas. We discussed about this when we talked about the 4 types of innovation before in a class, you know, and I told you that the radical type of innovation, companies are usually afraid to adopt it, even if it's a great idea. Now, why is that? Because they don't like surprises happening. Like, it's like when you start with something new, a new project, you never tried this before. Anything can go wrong. It's like you don't have the experience. You have to do like new research before you start it. There are certain uncertainties. So most companies like to stay on something they are used to. So you will see the same projects or the same ideas getting repeated. It's not that there are no creative designers working. They are, but they're not allowed to, you know, put their creativity on the table. So keep this in mind, okay? That this is a very sensitive matter. So they gain experience. Basically, everything is clear about the project. They stay in the same lines. maybe they cannot risk. Maybe they don't have the money to risk something. So again, they stay on the same lines. So we discussed this issue before about the creativity and innovation. So the cost, the time involved, with the uncertainties the company will be involved, whether it will succeed in the market, how even the final user will accept it or not accept it, needs a lot of research, a lot of money, a lot of... so rarely you will find companies who jump at your ideas, okay? If they're totally something new. So, our lecture is almost finished for today because it's a short one compared to last class. So, now, as a designer, whatever field you study, at some point, what in your life, you will graduate, and you will go to work, and you will be part of some kind of an industry. Even if you're a freelance designer, you're still part of the industry. You still need to know about economics, okay, and all these issues involved. So, but as I already mentioned, some things cannot be taught. Some things you learn only by doing it in real life. It's like when I teach a student how to draw. Okay, I'm teaching a drawing technique. Do this in this way, do that in that way. This is step 1, step 2, step 3. If the student does not actually draw, apply this technique, all this theory is for nothing. The same thing with this. Some things I can talk about them, but they will not be really fully understood, or even more than what I talk about. There is a lot of other things that you can only see once you are out in the industry. And it's so complicated that depending on where you are, what company you're dealing with, what people, what situations, things can change all the time. This uncertainty, you should keep it in mind. You need to collect as much skills as you can and knowledge to help you, but still, it's like, I would say 80% is uncertain. It's like when you graduate with the basics only. And this is why maybe you hear some people, I heard some designers graduating and they say, we studied for 4 years and not one of the things we studied we apply now in our working life. That's not because you're studying things without use. It just depends on where the person is working after graduation. Okay, so these things are important also to know about. And for today, it's enough about the design process related to the companies and designers and these kind of things. Okay, so let me see here. Okay, so this is it for today. If you have any questions,